Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Thank you again for joining me for another episode of Collections and Connections. I am your host, Lachelle Atkins, also known as America's Supermom, mother of 15 children. I am a vitality coach. I help professionals navigate through the chaos of everyday life, the burnout, the overwhelm, and transform that into clarity and confidence with a smile. Now, I know many of you might be thinking, chaos and confidence with a smile, how does that even work? And that is really one of the reasons why I'm doing this series is to understand that you have to go beyond yourself. A lot of things on my journey transpired and transformed with the help of other people. So I was raised an only child, had no siblings growing up. And I just had this attitude that if it needed to be done, I had to do it. And so later on, it didn't serve me well. I went through 13 years of depression, three hospitalizations, because I was trying to do things that were outside of my control, driving myself crazy. Now, when I was diagnosed with this depression, I didn't even realize it because I thought depression was somebody who is doing nothing, right? They have no motivation. They don't want to get up in the morning. You know, no get up and go with them. So the fact that I was juggling my kids, taking them to soccer or football or cheerleading and, doing things with field trips and community service and the list goes on and on. It just wasn't on my radar that I was depressed. So now I like to openly discuss that because a lot of people suffer in silence. So I was just on this hamster wheel of doing the same thing over and over again, expecting something to change, right? I was just trying to make it through another day. So, fast forward now, reading, podcasts, conversations with people have been a lifeline for me to be able to get out of my own head and hear the perspectives of other people to realize that I wasn't alone. Now, this probably was a cycle longer than most because I was an only child. So I was used to doing things by myself, not hearing any other perspectives for the most part. It was always just my own thoughts. So that could have been a precursor for all these things that happened. But needless to say, I'm happy to be where I am today and to be a advocate for mental wellness. And I say confidence with a smile because smile is a daily check in for me. So it stands for sleep, mood, inner voice, laughter, and energy. And I want to give a shout out to one of my connections, Carrie. We got connected on LinkedIn, and every day he sends me a joke. And that is just powerful for me because this is a lifeline for some people. Just reading a joke gets you out of your head, right? Imagine if I'm just focused on, oh, what am I going to do today? Same old day, same old this. I'm just kind of like on this train, but then it's like a pattern interrupt when something out of the ordinary shows up, like a joke, right? It causes me to think and even try to figure out, okay, what do they mean by this joke if it's something that I hadn't heard before? So that's a little insight about the smile. So we got three books today, and I'm excited to go over these books. If you were watching yesterday, there were some things that I was supposed to put in the chat, and life happened. So I'm going to go back and put those things in the chat. I am preparing for a trip this weekend. So I'm in the background doing a lot of different things. So my mind is like all over the place. And so this is why it's important to write things down. Just, food for thought for you. So if you're like, man, I thought I was going to do A, B, and C, did you write it down? Because after you are outside of that realm of doing what you're doing, life happens, right? So you write it down so that you can get right back to center regardless of what interrupts you or what thought takes you somewhere else. So that's just another little tip. All right. So the first book is Raising Positive Kids in a Negative World. So all these books you can find on my Amazon store. Um, but this book, I just think it is important to think about, how are we raising our kids, right? And this book has been around for a while. Um, so at the top of it, on this side that I'm going to read, it says, for a child, love is spelled Time. Okay. That's time. So after school time is this little section that I'm going to read. As the children get older and begin school, they have a real need to relax in the protection of a grown up who has always been their refuge. When they come home in the afternoon after 6 or 7 hours of social combat, conversation somehow flows more freely. Both joys and disappointments are nearer to the surface. You can't expect a child to go home by himself for several hours every day and not feel abandoned and frightened, says John Yonker, Director of Guidance Services in a suburban school district outside of St. Louis. They suffer from a lack of adult contact and a lack of security. So I was a latchkey kid. When I got home from school, would get off the bus, had my own key, come in, lock the door, have a snack, do my homework until my parents got home. So, this is what can be a challenge for a lot of children. Imagine if you're up late watching scary movies or something, and, you plant that seed of fear, and then you come home from school and you're by yourself, right? And so that fear can continue to grow if you feed it. You hear noises, so then you're jumping around or, hiding or whatever the case is. But my point is, as a child, it's like being a sponge. Everything is taken in and everything is kind of explored, really heightened curiosity. But I think one of the things that's important about this is um, they come home every afternoon after 6 or 7 hours of social combat. So we look at kids going through social combat, and it's the same thing for adults. A lot of times when you get off work, you just kind of want to decompress. If you are commuting, you take that ride home to kind of listen to maybe meditation music or something that's uplifting. But you understand there has been some kind of conflict going on. And so we don't even think that that could be happening with our kids either. It's something about being an adult. You still can have that narcissistic attitude of thinking, woe is me. Nobody has it like me. So I think this is really important to where maybe you do have to have your kids come home by themselves, but just being conscious of the fact of possibly calling them, maybe leaving them a special snack or a note or something to kind of uh, deflate some of that anxiety and just let them know that they are being seen and heard. But again, I want to just read the topic of this chapter, and it says, for a child, love is spelled Time. So that is raising positive kids in a negative world. All right, the next book is The 33 Laws of Stewardship Principles for a Life of True Fulfillment. Okay. So 33 laws, that's a lot of laws. And I'm going to read the law of faithful dependability. So this section is about faithfulness. Okay. Faithful dependability as a Christian steward relates to the management of money, but also to a great deal more. The portfolio for which we are responsible includes a wide range of components, and God's expectation is that we make the most of each one. Think of all the assets you have under management: your money, your time, your possessions, your opportunities, your influence, your relationships, and much more. And to this long list can be added the spiritual assets which we are entrusted: the gospel of Christ, the mystery of godliness, the secret things of God. This is no small responsibility we bear, and to handle it rightly demands absolute faithfulness. Now, this is really a profound passage because it says the portfolio for which we are responsible includes a wide range of components, and God's expectation is that we make the most of each one. So the assets that it mentions are money, time, possessions, opportunities, influence, relationships, and more. So many times we don't even value the asset of relationships or the asset of influence. Influence is seen as an asset. Opportunities are an asset. Okay, so in addition to possessions and money, right? And your time. Time is an asset. So a lot of times we squander a lot of these possessions, right? Or a lot of these assets because we don't, one, even understand their value and understand that they are an asset. A lot of these things we just go on. It's just like, well, everybody has it. What's the big deal? But influence and opportunities are something I'm sure a lot of people would be surprised is actually an asset. So it's a gift and a blessing to be able to take part in opportunities and influence. So when you think about being faithful, whether it's in your business, your personal life, how are you maximizing the use of those assets, right? And an asset is something that um, that you acquire wealth from, right? Or, it's something that builds value. It's not something that takes away from you. It's something that adds to you, right? And so money can be an asset if we're using it in the right way, right? But if we are just, living to make money to pay out and never thinking about how it could be an asset, we don't see it as an asset. We see it as a liability, right? Because for some people who live paycheck to paycheck, it's almost like a liability because by the time they get that check, it's already gone, right? And so they're being conditioned to think a certain way based on their choices, building up this cycle of depending on, this check to pay for this bill instead of thinking about how they can maximize their money and begin to minimize, the amount of income and being able to put some of their money in other places so that it becomes an asset and makes money for them, right? So, an example, if I own a house free and clear and I choose to rent it out for market value, whatever the rent is in the area, well, that asset is that house is now an asset because it's paying me an income and I don't have any expenses on it outside of insurance and utilities, depending. But if you're renting it out, they pay the utilities, but whatever it is to maintain the integrity of that property, keeping it painted, the roof done, landscape and all that. So that's an example of that. All right. So the last book is Walking Limitations. And this book is by my publisher. She published my book, Do You Want to Be Whole? 7 Steps to Living Mass Free. Right. And this is like a guided journal. This is my first solo book. And it includes a soundtrack from 2 of my kids. They have a soundtrack. So you have a QR code. You click on the code and you can download the music. So I'm going to read the back of this and then a passage on the inside. But Just want to give her a shout out, not only for the book, but because she's my publisher. All right. And this is Laquita Parks. The publishing company is Pay Pro V Publishing. All right. So it has been a journey filled with pain, hurt, and sadness. I have cried more tears than I ever want to admit, and I have made it through many sleepless nights. How does a simple procedure leave a child crippled for life? No one knew when I went into the hospital to have my tonsils removed that it would take me on a roller coaster ride that has not yet ended. Although it has not been easy, I've learned to trust and depend on God because He is faithful even when I am not. The road ahead may be bumpy, but I know that just around the corner there is a rainbow in the clouds. So, really understanding that, a lot of us have pain, hurt, and sadness. I think about that with my own journey of depression. I can't blame anybody. It wasn't anybody else's fault. Um, However, if I stay in that situation, do I want that 13 years to take over my entire life? And if the answer is no, I have to choose every day to do something to keep me moving forward. I have to consciously make it a choice to change my direction if I don't like where I'm headed, right? I have the ability to do that. And so a lot of times, because we have been in cycles and patterns for long amount of time, we just forget that we have a choice to change it. I can immediately say, you know what, I'm organized. Now, just because we believe it and we can be it, we still have to do it, right? I can't say that I'm organized, but not be organized, right? So sometimes when we're being something that is different than how we've been, we have to practice, right? So I could say I am a Olympic swimmer, but if I'm not practicing swimming, then that is going to be a false statement because I'm not going to get there. It's not even going to be possible because I'm not taking action, right? So, whatever we decide that we want to be, we have to live that, right? There's a scripture that says, be hearers and doers of the word. So, if you have a feeling or a passion about being something, for example, if you want to be a motivational speaker, well, then are you speaking? Right. Now, one of the things about motivational speaking is sometimes we can get caught up in somebody else's story, right? So I could say I want to be a motivational speaker, but my guide is Les Brown. I'm just using that as an example. So what happens is if I say I want to be a motivational speaker, I may feel inadequate if I compare myself to Les Brown. Now, the problem with that is that if I'm deciding today to be a motivational speaker and I'm comparing myself to someone who has been doing it for years, they are a veteran. I mean, who's really at fault? Is that my fault or the other person's fault? The other person is just living their passion. I'm observing them. However, I am holding myself to the standard of where they are when I'm just starting out. So if you're not going to run a marathon against a toddler, right? Because a toddler is just now learning how to walk. But this is what we do. We are the toddler when we're starting something new, and we're trying to go up against, an Olympic athlete when it comes to walking, right? We have to understand that we need to start where we are. We need to build up our skill of mastery, and then we can accomplish the things that we want to accomplish. Now, a lot of times your goals and visions are directed for you to stay focused on where you're headed. They're bigger than where you are now so that you can make sure you're staying on the right road, right? So I can say, I want to speak in front of 1,000 people. That's not for me to do tomorrow, right? If I don't have mastery, a skill set, a message that I want to share, all those things I need to work on. But I know, okay, one day I'm going to be in front of 1,000 people because there's a law of gestation. There's a time frame that things happen. If I decide I want to have a baby, I can't just say I want to have a baby and then tomorrow the baby's born. There is a gestation of 9 months. Now, sometimes babies are born early, premature, but the point is, you just don't say you want a baby and then tomorrow you have one. There's a gestation period to that. And so it's like that with a lot of things. There's a gestation for our mastery and skill set. So trying to avoid that can be problematic for us. All right. So this passage with walking limitations is, I remember standing at the top of the canyon and just thinking how amazing it was. While I didn't understand it then, I believe this was the first time I started to notice the beauty of God's creation. One of the selling points for Upward Bound was that the participants would take college prep courses and after high school graduation enroll into a college at Morris Brown. Well, that didn't happen for me. Even though I was very active in the Upward Bound program and not so much at my high school, I didn't feel like I was college material and decided not to go. Now, if you want to hear the rest, you got to read it. But this is a good excerpt to understanding feeling like what you couldn't do, but now having a successful publishing company. During COVID, starting, to actively um, contact people who were interested in writing a book, come in contact with them. And then now, I'm not sure how many books she has, not only her own, but books that she's published for other people who are receiving awards or speaking at different places, all because we can go beyond our limitations. The point is we put the limitations on ourselves. A lot of times we talk about how hard it is to say no, but it really isn't that hard. We say no to ourselves a lot of times, right? New opportunities show up. No, I can't do that. I don't have this. I don't have that. We say no to ourselves a lot. So we have to learn how to really hone in and be present in the moment and think about these things, right? A lot of times we say no because we don't have our full attention. We're trying to do a million things at one time. And so when people say things, right, uh, we don't catch it because we've got 1,000 things on our mind and head instead of really being present enough to decide if that is in our best interest or not. And then later on, we struggle with, man, I should have just did this, or man, if I had just paid more attention. We miss so many things because we're trying to juggle 1,000 things instead of being present. And so when we're able to be present and focus, we can really have clarity about what to do next. You really don't have to repeat a lot of things if you take the time to do it right the first time, right? So if you decide, okay, I'm going to do this video, for example, like what I'm doing now. Okay, what am I going to talk about? How am I going to prepare? You get that done. That's it. You're able to focus and be keen on what it is that you want to accomplish. You eliminate all the distractions. So, does it matter if I have gas in my car or not? Or dishes are in my sink? Or my bed is not made up? Okay, do all of these things matter? Now, at some point in the time of day, they may matter. But a lot of times when we're doing one particular task, all these other things in the background don't matter. That is one of the things that I am grateful to be able to focus on because there's a lot of things that go on in the background with 10 kids still at home. It's like, what am I going to make for breakfast? And, you know, did they do their chores last night? Am I going to walk into the kitchen with them being up all night with dishes in the sink, right? I could have a million things that I'm thinking about. However, is that really what's relevant right now in what I'm discussing? No, it's not. So a lot of times we don't show up for ourselves because we think about all the things in the background that other people are not even aware of. You know, I could have got on this live at a more convenient time for other people, but I'm not doing it for other people, right? I'm enjoying other people um, getting the insight that I've gotten from the books that I'm discussing, but I'm doing this because I want to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, right? This is something that I'm doing, and I'm just meeting people on my journey, right? So it's just like if you decide that you're going to start working out at the gym at 5 a.m., you start having a relationship with the people that are up at that time with you, right? You're waving to the people that are driving next to you in your car, or appreciating and conversating with the people that are at the gym with you, right? So this isn't for the people that don't resonate with my message. It's for the people that do. But really, it's for me to get out of my comfort zone and get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to gradually take those baby steps so that I can accomplish that. So when you think about the things that you're doing, do them for yourself, but also understanding that it takes baby steps to get where you want to be. You're not going to be a master of these things that you want to try and start, with you're not having a lot of experience or exposure. You might not have even done any research and you're just jumping in and trying it. And so those are the opportunities that we can really learn from on our journey. So I want to say good morning to Mac and Mary. Thank you guys so much for joining. And again, this is a segment that I have been doing Monday through Friday at 5 a.m. And this is on my journey to waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. But I do 3 books. I discuss the books, and the books can be found on my Amazon store. So this has been also helping me organize with all these books that I have around my house. And I feel like I'm reading so much more just because I'm reading a paragraph, right? I'm reading a paragraph of all these books. I love books, and it doesn't matter how many I have, I still find a good book and I have to take it home. I don't know. I'm just telling myself, this is a good book. I don't know this, right? I want to hear what they have to say about it. So the way that I avoid that is stay away from bookstores or, certain things. But I just have the tendency to gravitate there. And my kids just laugh at me all the time. However, I get great insight from hearing the perspectives of other people. So if you feel like you want to take a social media pause, right? That was one thing I did when I first came out of my depression was I just got quiet, I stopped watching the news, social media, and I just got back to finding out what I wanted, what really defined me on my own terms, who I was because I had lost my identity. Reading is a good thing to do while you're doing that because you're able to focus, right, on what you're reading and you don't have any distractions. And so I really started treating my books like a conversation. So before, because I was a high achiever in school, you just read for, underlining, highlighting, taking notes. But now I read for a conversation, so it's like, how can I apply this to my life? Right. So, like when I was discussing about after school, how can I apply this principle of after school not only to my kids, but to myself or to my husband or anybody else? Right. What about my connections? How can I have the after school mindset with them? Maybe I could send them a letter of gratitude at the end of their day or a text message that says something encouraging at the end of their day, right? So these are things that other people may not be conscious of, all from reading this book about raising positive kids in a negative world, right? That idea, I can apply it not just with my kids, but in my business, right? I can apply it with the doctors, the pediatricians that serve my children. After school, right, is like now in the summertime. Maybe I could take them a dozen donuts to the doctor's office and just say, happy summer, right? So just different things that we could do. But my time has come to an end. And I want to again thank you guys so much for watching. This series I have been doing for the month of June, and June is coming to an end. So I think I'm going to do a video on Friday. I will be traveling on Friday, so I will not be here. So I'm going to pre record a video that is going to be my finale, so to speak, on Friday. So thank you guys so much for watching. I encourage you to reach out to each other because this is really how we network and continue with our connections is by reaching out to everybody. Thank you so much, Mary. Mary is the best cheerleader, right? She reminds me of my mom. It's like your mom who's like, you did great. It's raining. They're out there cheering you on no matter what the circumstances are. So I just love that because that is really motivating and encouraging because all it takes is one, right? I don't need a whole bleacher full of people to resonate with my message, just one, right? And that one is enough to keep that spark lit, right? So, thinking about the power of one, how can we encourage somebody else today, right? How can we be a cheerleader for somebody else? So, just encouraging them, hey, you're doing a good job at work. Hey, I love your outfit. Hey, I love your smile. I love how you always wear certain accessories. A kindness goes a long way. I talked a little bit about this yesterday with it being PTSD day. So today, remember, always show kindness to people. Be a cheerleader, because that energy is contagious, right? It comes from within and it spills out to others. And so it keeps on growing the more that you use it, though. So thank you so much, Mary, I'm going to call her, I used to call her the LinkedIn concierge. Now I'm going to call her the YouTube cheerleader. So I love coming up with nicknames because it gives you a visual. You feel like her. I'm like, hey, the cheerleader's on, so everybody understands she's got her cheering gear, her pom poms, her megaphone. So I love it. All right, guys. Well, have a wonderful day and remember to be kind and be patient and be present. Be present to change and empower the lives of other people. So, thank you so much for joining, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.